Have you ever heard of Colony Ridge? It's an interesting little spot, and it's something you definitely should have heard about. In fact, I'm assuming you're going to be hearing more about it in the coming days. Joining me now to discuss it is Spencer Lindquist, wonderful investigative reporter with the Daily Wire. Hey, Spencer, what's Colony Ridge? It sounds lovely.
Colony Ridge is anything but lovely. It is a 60 square mile development just north of Houston, and it covers 33,000 acres for context, and it is set to reach a population of 250,000 people, 250,000 people. That's larger than Knoxville, Tennessee, larger than Boise, Idaho, or Scottsdale, Arizona. And it is built on systematically attracting illegal aliens inside Texas, into the interior of our country, and we've seen the results of it. We've seen criminality. We've seen these raids now in Colony Ridge from ICE and from the Texas Department of Public Safety, and they've been rounding up illegal aliens, including child sex offenders, drug runners, and people who are allied with the cartels.
Spencer, could you rewind to the very beginning and bore me with the details and explain to me how 250,000, many of whom are illegal, were able to set up a 60 square mile shop inside of the red state of Texas? How did this happen?
Well, we first visited Colony Ridge in 2023, and we dropped our first investigation on it in September of that year. It's impossible to really nail down the precise population figures, but we do know that they are targeting 250,000, and that's the number they'll reach if they are allowed to. And really what we've seen is that this is an industry. Mass immigration is a business. It's a business from the cartel coyotes on the southern border to the resettlement agencies that DOJ is now looking into that dump migrants into American communities. And it's a business for Colony Ridge and the developers, John and Trey Harris, brothers there, who have profited off of mass immigration. And they have completely, irreparably damaged a once quiet Texas community. They tell people that they can own land in America. That's the language they use. Of course, it's all in Spanish, not in English. And they also say that you can buy in Colony Ridge without a social security number. And this is something that has been allowed to happen. It flourished in Texas for years until the Daily Wire began reporting on it. And then we saw a series of crackdowns. We saw a Texas legislature special session on the matter. We saw a lawsuit from the Department of Justice and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau alleging that there are predatory lending practices. And we saw a similar lawsuit from the Texas Attorney General. Now we're seeing these ICE raids, and we've seen swift action from the Trump administration. But this was allowed to flourish for years, not in Illinois, not in California, not in New York, but in Texas, the epitome of a red state.
Do they have a government? I mean, do they have a mayor, a city council? Do they have people in charge who are looking the other way?
This is a company, really, and it's a land development. They have this interesting legal designation. They've got what's called an MMD, and effectively what it is, it's a legal arrangement that they lobbied for through the Texas legislature, and it gives them certain powers, almost quasi-governmental powers. They don't have their own police force, they don't have a city council, but they do have the ability to tax their residents, and we've seen some interesting use of those taxpayer dollars. We broke a story on this last year, or perhaps in 2023, actually, on the nature of these taxes and where exactly they went, how they flowed back into the pockets of people who are tied to the developers. But all that's to say that this is something that was allowed to happen for years upon years, and really we only saw action on it once we brought the scrutiny against this development through our investigations.
Okay, so the Trump administration, they've got ICE in there, they're digging out the dirt balls. Do you have any sense, Spencer, because you've done all the reporting on it, 250,000 people, they're not all illegal, are they? How many people need to be cleared out of this place?
It's impossible to know exactly how many people live there, and it's impossible to know exactly how many of them are illegal aliens. Right now, we estimate that there's probably anywhere from 70,000 to 100,000 people there, and of course, there's that trajectory that'll carry it to 250,000 if they're allowed to continue. But right now we've seen that there were 90 illegal aliens who were captured in these raids yesterday. There was other illegal aliens that were captured before that, including a Guatemalan human smuggler who feds say was responsible for a mass casualty event when illegal aliens that he was smuggling into the United States got killed when a tractor trailer crashed. There was also various different multiple murderers, alleged murderers who are wanted by the international police. There is an illegal alien who said that who admitted actually that he was guilty to killing a woman at gunpoint in Colony Ridge. And then just yesterday, there was an MS-13 member who'd been deported from the United States 7 times. On 7 different occasions, he invaded our country and came back and was deported. He led police on a 7-hour manhunt after he is allegedly fatally stabbed an individual. It's no coincidence that these illegal aliens, many of whom were deported previously, and that they end up in Colony Ridge. The red carpet has been rolled out for criminal illegal aliens in Colony Ridge, and people have gotten rich off it, while many politicians, unfortunately, looked the other way until this was brought into the public eye through our reports.
Good grief. Tom Homan was at CPAC talking tough about all this stuff. Here he was.
Let me start out by saying this. If I offend anybody today, I don't give a Don't care. The media in the back room, I'm sure I'll be reading a lot of hit pieces on me tomorrow. I don't give a what you think about me. I wake up every day for the last 4 years pissed off because the Biden administration took the most secure border in my lifetime and unsecured it on purpose. Right? I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president I ever worked for took steps to secure the border. Even Clinton and Obama took steps to secure the border because they clearly understood you can't have national security without border security. They got it. Joe Biden's the first president in history of the nation who came into office and unsecured the border on purpose. So for 4 years, I wake up every day pissed off. That changed November 5th.
Spencer, he's obviously not playing around because now they're arresting business owners as well.
That's right. The ICE, under the leadership of course, the Trump administration and of Tom Homan in particular, you're right, they're not messing around. They're not messing around in Colony Ridge. They started deporting people after just the first 7 days of being in office. They started deporting people in Colony Ridge, and then they had this raid. And yes, they're also going after business owners. We saw this in the Rio Grande Valley, where there was a bakery that had employed 8 illegal aliens illegally. And they were found to be harboring illegal aliens. That, of course, is not legal. So they could be facing jail time for this. And this gets back to a core point that illegal immigration is a business. It's one big industry. And unfortunately, there are corporate interests in this country that profit from cheap labor. And in order to seal the border, of course, deportations are one solution. Another potential solution is cutting off the economic incentives that bring people across the border and that lead corporate interests to hire people for cheap labor.
Spencer, we are now seeing resistance groups putting names and addresses up of ICE guys in places like Los Angeles. What will be done about this stuff?
There are radical activist classes in cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and various different places across the country. And we should expect them to continue attempting these types of radical actions to target and clearly endanger law enforcement and members of ICE. So I imagine that the Department of Justice is looking into these cases. I imagine that the federal government is not going to take any of these threats lightly, because these are federal agents who are enforcing federal law, oftentimes enforcing federal law in contradiction of the wishes of states like California or New York or other sanctuary jurisdictions. And it's no surprise, unfortunately, to see these types of radical extremists trying to target members of law enforcement. I expect it to continue unless the Department of Justice or the federal government writ large puts a stop to it.
Spencer, I appreciate it. Come back soon. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.